بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We're coming to the end of our little series of inspiring talks, glimpses from the jewels of that extraordinary treasure chest of early Islam, the biographies of the first Muslims. Here in the library at Cambridge Muslim College, it's very easy to get distracted by the treasures, the wonders that we have on our shelves. And this year we've been looking at the lives and the scholarship and the piety and the holiness of several of the women of the second generation of Muslims. They are the Tabi'iyat, those who knew the companions of the Chosen One, alayhi salatu wasalam, but didn't have the delight of seeing him and having the sohbah, companionship. And we've already seen what an extraordinary generation that was. And today I want to look at another of these ladies from a slightly different angle. We've looked at these ladies in the family context as daughters, as wives in extremely close, loving partnerships with their sainted husbands. Motherhood is perhaps the dominant theme of the lady that we want to talk about today. And we've also seen that the function of these ladies in that early sacred society, which astonished the world, not just with its physical conquests, but with its spiritual conquests as well, was certainly not just about kinship, al-arham, but was also about a significant public role as instructors, as narrators, and as spiritual guides. So the particular mother that I'd like to talk about in this session is a lady called Nu'man. Nu'man, rahmatullahi alayha. She is the wife of somebody called Thabit, and there's a very charming story that the ulama often tell about how these two got together, which again is not just a charming story, but is a reminder of how the later generation of Muslims remembered their extraordinary spirit of sacrifice and piety. And I'd like to read through what the historians have to say about how Nu'man got married. This is from another nice book which I found in the CMC library. It's nice, I think, to read it in the Arabic just for the blessings, and then we'll roughly translate. Okay, one of the righteous, whose name was Thabit. We know a bit about this Thabit, that he was the son of a war captive from Afghanistan, so family fairly recent converts to Islam, but very pious. أحد الصالحين. كان يسير ذات يوم في طريق ما. One day he was going along a road. إذ سقطت تفاحة من بستان. When an apple fell from a garden, a market garden, a little farm. فأخذها وأكل نصفها. So he picked it up and ate half of it. وتذكر أنها ليست من حقه. And then he remembered, this isn't mine. فدخل على البستاني. So he looks for the farmer, the keeper of this garden, البستاني. وقال أكلت نصف التفاحة فسامحني فيما أكلت. I've eaten half of your apple, so forgive me. وخذ النصف الآخر, and you can keep the other half. فقال البستاني أنا لا أملك المسامحة. But the farmer said, this is not my farm, and I'm not able to let you off, give you permission. فالبستان ليس ملكي وإنما هو ملك سيدي. It's my boss who owns this farm. قال وأين سيدك حتى أذهب إليه وأستسمحه. So where can I find your boss? Says Thabit. فقال له بينك وبينه مسير يوم وليل. Says it's a whole day's journey away. So for half an apple. The point of this story is that any Muslim reader knows this is about honesty and probity. فقال لأذهبن إليه مهما كان الطريق بعيدا. I'll go no matter how far the road is. لأن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال كل جسم نبت من سحت فالنار أولى به. Because of the hadith, every body nourished illegally shall be is rightly the possession of hellfire. So he's scared about this half apple. وذهب إلى صاحب البستان. So he finally finds his way to this landowner. وطرق بابه, knocks on his door. وفتح له الرجل الباب. وبعد أن سلم عليه قال له. And the man opens the door, gives him salams, and then Thabit says, سامحني فيما أكلت من التفاحة. Please forgive me for the half apple of yours which I've eaten. وهذا نصفها, and here's the other half. فنظر إليه صاحب البستان. The landowner looked at him وقال لا أسامحك. I'm not going to forgive you for this. إلا بشرط واحد, except on one condition. فقال ثابت ما هو. Thabit says, what's that? He's getting anxious. قال أن تتزوج ابنتي. He says, you have to marry my daughter. ففرح, and Thabit was pretty happy with this. ولكن الرجل ذكر له, but the man told him, إنها عمياء بكماء صماء مقعدة. She's blind, deaf and dumb, crippled, can't walk. Those days, sickness, before modern medical care, there were quite a few people like that. They were a burden on their families. It was an issue, no hospice care for them. Okay, so what's Thabit going to do just for this half apple to be forgiven? Pious man from that generation. قال قبلت خطبتها. I agree. وسأتاجر فيها مع ربي. I shall do business with this with my Lord. In other words, I hope that there will be a recompense for me in the akhirah. ثم أقوم بخدمتها, and I can serve her. This again is a reminder of a kind of piety that perhaps we don't see so often nowadays. Taking on somebody in order to help them rather than in order for them to help you and to get something out of them. A different conception of marriage, an opportunity for sacrifice. Actually, I was thinking about Imam Ghazali, Kitab Kasr al-Shahwatain, has some stories like this. One aspirant, Murid, married a woman of great beauty who shortly before the wedding was afflicted with the smallpox, which of course ruins the face, scars you forever. Her family were beside themselves with grief and feared that he would no longer find her beautiful. Instead, however, he pretended to them that he himself had been afflicted with ophthalmia. He couldn't see very well. So that when she was given to him in marriage, her family were no longer distressed. He continued in this way for 20 years until at last, when she died, he opened his eyes. You have outrun all your brethren, he was told, through your goodness of character. Another Sufi once married a bad-tempered woman and endured her company patiently. When asked why he did not divorce her, he replied, I'm afraid that someone might marry her who is unable to tolerate her and will suffer accordingly. Not too many people embark on the quest for a spouse on that basis nowadays, looking for a sacrifice, looking for an opportunity for service, looking for an opportunity to exercise sabr. Instead, nowadays, if something isn't quite right, we immediately fly off the handle and demand X, Y, Z, and this isn't what I expected, and divorce is too common nowadays. At least remembering how the great saints of the past were in their understanding of marriage as an opportunity for learning together, for sacrifice, for service, might give us a different perspective on things that actually might help us a lot. Sabr, one of the lessons of Ramadan is sabr, and it's necessary in marriage. And these early Muslims took it on. Okay, so he's saying, this will be my deal with God. I will serve her, look after her. She's deaf, she's dumb, she's blind, she can't even walk, she's a cripple. ثم أتى أبوها بشاهدين. And then her father went off and found the two witnesses. Nikah is going to happen right away. فشهد على العقد, and they testified. They witnessed the contract. So he's married. وإذا بصاحب البستان يدخل ابنته الحجرة المعدة للزواج. And then the landowner brings in his daughter to the room that's been prepared for the marriage. And Thabit goes in, shy of course, not looking. وقال سألقي عليها السلام. He says, I will give her salam. وأنا أعلم أنها صماء. I know that she's deaf, but the angels will reply. فألقى عليها السلام. So he says, السلام عليكم to her. فردت عليه. She says to him, وعليكم السلام. ووقفت ووقفت ووضعت يدها في يده. She stood up. She put her hand in my hand. فقال ماذا حدث? And so Thabit says, what's going on? ردت السلام إذا ليست مقعدة ومدت يدها. She's not a cripple. And she said salams to me. What's going on? ليست عمياء. She's not blind after all. فقال لها إن أباك قد أخبرني أنك صماء بكماء مقعدة عمياء. Your father told me that you were deaf and dumb and couldn't walk. ولم أرى ما أخبرني به أبوك. And you don't seem to be like that. فأجابته. She replied, إن أبي أخبرك بأني عمياء فأنا عمياء عن الحرام. My father told you that I was blind. It is true. I never look at the haram. And that's important in our time, where everything is asking us to look at haram. One of my teachers from Kurdistan, rahmatullahi alayh, his father reached the age of 96. Never used glasses. Just read, had no problem. And the family said that's because never in his life did he look at a woman who was not his mahram. Well, that's easy up a mountain in Kurdistan. Nowadays, everything is flying around, but this is an important principle. Preserve your eyes. غض البصر. وأن عيني لا تنظر إلى ما حرم الله. My eye does not look at that which God has made forbidden. وصماء عن كل ما لا يرضي الله. And I don't hear anything that doesn't please Allah. بكماء لأن لساني لا يتحرك إلا بذكر الله. I'm dumb because my tongue only moves in dhikrullah, remembrance of God. مقعدة لأن قدمي لم تحملني إلى ما يغضب الله. I'm unable to walk because my foot will never carry me to something that will make my Lord angry with me. And this, of course, reminds us of the hadith al-nawafil. وَإِذَا أَحْبَبْتُ, Allah says in this hadith Qudsi, which is in the Sahih. وَإِذَا أَحْبَبْتُ كنت سمعه الذي يسمع به وبصره الذي يبصر به ورجله التي يمشي عليها ويده التي يبطش بها. This is about the wali, wilaya. When I love my servant, Allah is saying in the sound hadith, I become the eye with which he sees, the ear with which he hears, the foot with which he walks, the hand with which he strikes. That's what she's referring to. She's pure. So her father spoke the truth, but at a higher spiritual level. And presumably just to test this guy, he's obviously really honest. He's coming to me after walking for a whole day because he's worried about half an apple. Maybe he's good enough for my daughter. This is what's going on. But I'll just test him with this, see if he's really good. And so this is the revelation that Thabit, son of the servant from Kabul, discovers. And then, of course, happy ending. وَنَظَرَ ثَابِتْ إِلَى وَجْهِهَا فَكَأَنَّهُ الْقَمَرُ لَيْلَةَ التَّمَامِ. As always, finally, he lifts up his gaze and he looks at her face and she's like the full moon, etc. وَأَنْجَبَ مِنْهَا مَوْلُودًا. And from her he was granted a son, مَلَأَ طِبَاقَ الْأَرْضِ عِلْمًا وَصَلَاحًا وَأَدَبًا وَخُلُقًا. A son who filled the horizons with knowledge and righteousness and courtesy and akhlaq, beautiful ethics. And who is that? Well, she is Nu'man bin Thabit Abu Hanifah. We know him as Abu Hanifah, of course. Abu Hanifah, they say it means an ink pot because he was always writing. It's one of the stories about him, but this is his background, not from an Arab background, but it's an example of how early Islam overturned race and class. But he becomes Al-Imam Al-A'zam, the greatest imam for his followers. And she is his mother, marrying this guy from the captives of war. So other things that are narrated about her and about the tremendous reverence in which Abu Hanifah and Nu'man held his mother. So just, for example, one famous story, when he's already famous, the leading scholar of fiqh in Kufa, so famous that when the people of the city of Kufa, big city, heard that he'd given a fatwa, they would stand up out of respect. This is the fatwa of Abu Hanifah. But she was always interested in religious matters, and sometimes she would say to her son, can you go to so-and-so to ask what his fatwa, his view is on such and such a thing? Well, why not get anybody why get the great Mufti, the founder of the Hanafi madhab, to go on this errand? He always did it. So once she asked him to go to somebody called Amr bin Dhar, who was a very famous khatib. He gave famous Friday sermons in Kufa. Abu Hanifa goes to this khatib, Amr bin Dhar, and says, it is my mother's wish that she should hear your fatwa on this particular fiqh ruling. And he would tell him, and Abu Hanifah would go back and tell his mother. Once it happened that the Shaykh Amr bin Dhar didn't know the answer. And so, what does he do? He says to Abu Hanifah, Ya Tura, what would your fatwa be? What would your answer be if you were asked this question? And so he says, it's this X, Y, Z. Amr says, then that's my fatwa. Go back to your mother, don't disappoint her, say that is my fatwa. That's the answer of Amr ibn Dhar. So the respect of these great founders of the Sharia for their mothers, important in this age when older women are often kind of abandoned and neglected, and a phone call once a week, and that's not how it should be. Paradise beneath the feet of mothers, and no matter how estimable you become as a man in society, the mother, Holy Prophet is asked, Man ubir, to whom shall I show obedient kindness? Qal ummak. قال من قال أمك قال ثم من أمك قال ثم من أباك. To whom shall I show this filial piety? Your mother. Then who? Your mother. Then who? Your mother. Then who? Your father. That's the priority in Islam. It's, if you like, it's matriarchal. It's a matriarchal system. The mother is the mother. And Abu Hanifah, not a man, shows this in practice in his reverence for his mother. It's even said that once the Amir of Kufa wanted him to be the Qadi, the judge. Abu Hanifah didn't want this post, possibly out of piety, because being a judge is such a huge responsibility. If an innocent person is punished, you're kind of accountable, and very many of the early Muslims were afraid of judgeships. He refuses it. The governor of Kufa has him flogged, 110 lashes for Abu Hanifah. He was asked afterwards, that must have felt so painful and humiliating. And he said, yes, but I was remembering the pain and the humiliation it would cause my mother. This is how they were, and this is how these women were integrated into that miracle society. Ummah, not a man, now awaiting the no doubt favourable, glorious judgment of Arhamar Rahimin, an inspiration and a reminder of what a woman is invited to be in Islam. This is a very high thing, a very exalted thing, and the Quran so often is speaking about the miracle of conception, the miracle of pregnancy, the miracle of birth, and these are such honourable, honouring things. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honoured so many of these early Muslim women with a very high and central role in spreading the ethics of Islam and in spreading hadith, in spreading Quran. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us people who are something like that, or at least give us the rahmah, the blessing that descends when we remember them. بِذِكْرِهِمْ تَنْزِلُ الرَّحْمَةِ. Just by mentioning them, Allah's mercy descends and surrounds us. May Allah accept our fasting, bring us safely to the Eid, keep us in the Ramadan spirit as much as possible after the Eid, inshaAllah, and help us to read and enjoy. CMC Library is here, full of treasures. Don't keep the treasure chest pointlessly locked. Enjoy. Everything is gleaming here. Barakallahu fikum wa taqabbalallahu siyamakum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
Ramadan provides us with an invaluable opportunity to increase our piety, our God consciousness. It is also an opportune time to give generously in charity. As an independent institution of higher education and a registered charity, our work relies on the generosity of individuals like you. During this blessed month, we ask you to support Cambridge Muslim College. You can do so through regular giving, by becoming a friend or patron, or one-off donations, whatever the amount. This Ramadan, our goal is to make 10,000 new friends. Head to the donate page on our website, become a friend for as little as £5 a month, and help us continue delivering educational programs like this for the wider community, training the next generation of Muslim scholars, thinkers, and leaders.